Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Chattanooga. I am the Reverend Mandy Goheen. It is my great honor to serve this congregation and be back from vacation. We don't know why the seats are pushed back so far, so if you need to push them up, feel free. I feel like I'm very far away from everyone today. So today is the last in my series about relationships, and as much as I would have liked to skip the part about breaking up, it's still an important part of the arc of relationships. And we have been hearing things from other religious organizations and politicians that might not be the best advice. So I thought it would be good for you to at least hear my opinion about how all that works. But before I say that, I want to welcome you here to this space, and I want to say how excited I am that you came today. It's a lovely summer day, and you chose to spend it with us, and that makes me so happy. I just about can't stand it, so thank you for being here. When we gather in this space, we have some traditions, and one of those traditions is honoring the land that we're on. And so please join me in reading the UUCC land acknowledgement. At UUCC, we acknowledge that our church sits on Cherokee, Muskogee, and Yuchi land. And we are a people of covenant with each other, not with something else. Our relationships with the divine and the holy are personal, and our covenants are with each other. So please join me in reading our church covenant. We journey together bound in the interdependent web of existence. We embrace diversity, own our conflicts, and assume good intentions. When we fail, we begin again in love. Justice and compassion shall be our watchwords, and beloved community our goal. And now I'd like to invite Monique up to help us light our chalice. The chalice is a symbol of religious freedom and a symbol of the beginning of our time together. Please join me in those words. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Thank you. So, I want to invite everybody to rise in body and or spirit and join us in our opening hymn. If you're following in the hymnal, we're skipping the verse about ears. Seemed a little weird. So, please join us in our opening song. Thank you. Please be seated. One of my favorites, if I say that first, we always mess up, so I try to say that at the end. Look how y'all filled up after I turned around. Wow, hi everyone. It is time for our story for all ages. Woo! And if anybody would like to come up front, we have plenty of room, because we're going to be doing I'm going to stay up here, but I'm going to lead you in some movement for this, okay? Yeah, you can sit here, you can sit wherever you need, but we're going to do some movements. Are you ready? So this is from an ancient Jewish text, and it's one of the many creation stories. Did you know that all different religions have different creation stories? It's when they try to figure out how the world and people started. And so this is about at the beginning of time, before anything else existed, love was all there was. And it filled up everything in the whole universe. Can you imagine that? Love filling every crack and corner. But love got bored and lonely. There was no one to be in love with. So one day, love decided to make the world. Here we go. Ready? I want you to see if you can do the same thing love did. First, love took a deep breath. Can you take a deep breath? How deep can you take? Whew. Okay. Let me see. Deeper. Let's try a little deeper. Love got all squished up, taking the deepest breath ever, and was so squished it squeezed out the darkness, and the darkness was all around, thick and black. It was beautiful now. Love couldn't see anything. Love waved its arms around. Let's try it. Waved its arms around. Ooh. Waved its arms around in the darkness, but the darkness was everywhere. I have to do something about this, said love. It thought for a minute, and it tried to think of the most wonderful, beautiful, warm thoughts ever. Love thought harder and harder, and all of a sudden love called out, I want light. Ready? I want light. And pop! All the warm and wonderful and beautiful thoughts exploded outward in 10 different directions and shaped themselves into the 10 big glowing glass balls. Each ball was filled with spinning lumps of pure light and warmth. Some of the spare good thoughts that couldn't quite fit in the glass became dust and water vapor and seeds and molecules that could form animals. And love said, this is amazing. Help me out. This is amazing. I better make something for the light to shine on. So it waved its arms and kicked its legs. Help me out. Wave your arms and kick your legs. Oh, because creating things is hard. And it did this, and so it kicked its legs a lot, and the dust and the vapor and the molecules that had been scattered came together. And dirt and water and plants and animals all were in one spot, and love called this the earth. The 10 balls of light started towards earth, and they had made it here in one piece, and the entire planet would have been exactly the way love wanted it, but the glass balls were too fragile to contain such strong, powerful, wonderful, good thoughts, and they broke open and they shattered, and the good thoughts shattered and flew out like sparks. Have you ever seen sparks in a fire? Like when yeah, that's a good spark. Who else has a good spark noise? Ooh, can you make it louder? Oh, well, maybe love sneezed and the sparks came out too, I think. That would make sense, right? Because it's a lot of dust. So, oh no, I'm too big. I'll never be able to find all those tiny sparks. I have to make one more thing. So love waved its arms and kicked its feet one last time. Help me. Wave your arms and kick your feet one last time. And people appeared on earth. And they didn't know it, but they were created with one job: to find these sparks, these tiny pieces of wonderful goodness, and bring them together in big clumps. We're kind of together in a big clump today. When enough clumps are there, it will create big glass containers to hold them. And this time I will set them down a little more carefully, love said. So all around us, from the time we are born, we have a job. And that job is to help find love and more good and warm and wonderful things. It's what we do to fix the world. Did you ever think that your family is what you do to fix the world, or your friends? So remember, when you go out, and you're going to go downstairs pretty soon, to always spread the love. And if ever that dark part gets in your way, you can start flailing your arms and push it back. Yes, you have a question, sir. No. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. There's a cool place to go in a second where you can ask lots of questions, and that's called religious education. And so, In that spreading of the love, you're going to go downstairs with adults who want to spread the love to you and teach you and learn lots of stuff. And you can ask me a question afterwards. And let's sing all our children down to religious education. Thank you for listening to my story. So I just got back from Ohio, and some of you might have read in the newsletter that I took this ritual with me to the lake that my grandfather dug, and I shared it with my family. And when I was sharing that with my family, they have a more Christian context, and so we talked about throwing away our sins, which was kind of fun. And I mean, really fun, honestly. And a child came up to me, and he kept getting rocks out of the container I had over and over again. And I was like, uh-oh. This doesn't mean you get to misbehave next week, right? But I said, these are my sins for next week. And he said, these are my sins for next week. And we threw rocks in the lake. And he came back one more time, and he said, and this is for in 10 years. And I thought, oh, what a cool ritual we all have. Like, it's very mobile. There's always water somewhere. And just remember to take this with you. If you're having a bad day, or you need to let go of things that are hard, or you need a special wish to help good things move through your life, don't forget, simply throwing some rocks in water can really release us and do our hearts a lot of good. So take that with you. And remember, if you want to get rid of your sorrows for in 3 weeks, try it out. Try it out. This is a time in the service when you are welcome to come forward and bring those things that have been hard for you and drop them in the cleansing water of this community. If you're somebody who's not comfortable coming forward, because we do have cameras up here, there's a little bowl with some rocks in the back where you can do this. And thirdly, at the end, I'll ask anybody who hasn't come up if they'd like me to drop a rock for them. If you're new around here, the next thing after you drop the rocks in the water, you are welcome to have a hug from me, but it is not required. It is completely consensual, and I always like to say that. I think that was the thing I taught my family the most. I was like, did you ask that kid for a hug? And they're like, quit. But we like to ask permission. We like to create spaces where people are welcomed in, but not forced to believe a specific thing or a specific way. And with that, I invite you forward to drop the rocks in the water. Would anybody like me to drop a rock in the water for them? Yeah, okay. No, not everybody has been divorced or separated, but possibly in some contexts has had a friend. And this is a specific blessing for those who have gone through that process at some time in their life. For all who left relationships in order to save your heart, may your heartbeat be your blessing. In rhythm, its particular kinship, its unique rhyme, may you know your heart as God's blessing. For all who set boundaries in order to keep your mind intact, may your own mind be a blessing. Integrity, its edginess, its willingness to wonder and to know. May you know your own mind is God's blessing. For all who had let go in order to protect your body, your safety, those you love, may your body be your blessing. Its strength, its beauty, its imperfect humanity. May you know your own body as a blessing. For all who had to walk away in order to save your spirit, may your own spirit be your blessing. Its spaciousness, breadth, its deep and abiding wisdom. May you know your own spirit as a blessing. Heart, mind, body, spirit. May you know your own wholeness, reconstituting yourself as separate from this relationship, walking away in love and blessing. May you walk towards one more love, knowing that you walked squarely in God's sight and with God's blessing and with love. I'm going to find my clicker. Oh, there it is. And now for something completely different. Yes. So I had originally requested that we sing Rocky Raccoon, but I think it's a little too edgy. But I thought Bon Voyage was pretty good. And so take it, maestros. Thank you very much. If anybody tells you that breaking up is easy, that's a lie, right? And I'm speaking from the experience of having gone through my first divorce with my parents at 6. And I remember it was very formational in my life, and it was very formational in how I developed into a very jealous adult. So it can have an impact. I'm putting this screen up for us to think about. One of the things that makes me laugh about this is there's always a fight over whether Rumi or the Buddha said it. But before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? No better relationship advice had ever been given to me. It allows me to slow down and think. And I'm speaking as a person whose boyfriend was actually stolen by a woman named Jolene. It's true. He was really cute. He was a bass player. It was the 90s. And I couldn't believe that after moving out of the country to Pittsburgh, which I thought was the big city, there were still Jolenes lurking out there ready to steal my man. Marriage is a serious endeavor. Some people have talked to me about my opinion, and I've gotten a really good clarity about it being a partnership. But what it isn't is it isn't coercive, it isn't painful, and it's not a trap. I think it's important as Unitarian Universalists who understand the inherent worth and dignity of every person to realize that we can never understand someone else's breakup. We never know why that last straw for them is that last straw, but what we can do is we can listen and we cannot triangulate. So there's also a thing called triangulation that I want to talk about for a minute, and it's when, well, I've fallen into the trap, quite frankly. I had a co-worker in West Virginia going through a divorce and separation that I didn't know all the details to, but I helped. And that doesn't always work, just for the record. I didn't realize that there were violence and there was the undercurrent of violence in this relationship, and I put myself in danger without really knowing what I was doing. I take domestic violence very seriously, and sometimes it's not safe for you to intervene for other people. You can make it worse. So I want to lend you that advice. I also want to talk about my passion for premarital counseling. And actually, the National Institute for Health did a study of people who had participated in premarital counseling and why. This was a study of people who divorced after that. And what was interesting to them is many of the folks that divorced after that had a more articulate view and reason and clarity and truthfulness about why they separated. What is also interesting from that study is both sides blamed each other equally. It didn't matter if you were the dumpy or the dumped or, it didn't matter what side you were on. There was blame equally, and I think that's where we get into the most trouble. When I am in a relationship with a person, no matter if it is a friendship or it is a serious relationship, I've been married for 29 years, 30 this month, and as I've expressed before, that's not an easy job. It is work, and it's often time for worse, but what happens is people have a last straw. And what we don't remember to do when we're coming together in marriage is to talk about what that last straw might be. My last straw, as I mentioned, I am very jealous. And it was something that I made clear to my spouse from the beginning. And he's pretty okay with that and gets it, and that's helpful. But being jealous can be a hindrance. It can cause you to invent things that aren't there. It can cause you to have arguments with people in your head who don't exist. It can do a lot of that thing. And another piece of advice that I've said frequently is don't have a fight with somebody who's not there. It's really not helpful. Don't decide what someone else's truth is. Don't let them encourage you to fight. Religion and marriage is a tricky thing. Religion and marriage, specifically for the context I grew up in, which was Catholic, is a tricky thing. Regardless of the marriage license or the divorce, the couple, in order to marry again, is asked to go through a process called annulment. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that process, but I've also been through that process as a child with my parents. I've also known that in that power of the priesthood, the separation can be denied. And when my mom got married to the love of her life, her second husband, the church didn't recognize his divorce, so never recognized that they were married. And I want to say that's the least of damage that churches have done when it comes to matrimony. We are not in a time where women's rights should be taken lightly. We're not in a time where relationships and safety should be taken lightly when we are hearing from politicians that staying in a broken, violent relationship is worthy of praise. And in fact, divorcing is cowardice or not even allowed. One of the biggest things that lead to early divorce is a young marriage, people who marry when they're 19 or under. Another thing that they say will cause people to separate or divorce is if you cohabitate before the marriage. Now, I know there are a lot of studies that say that's true, but in my own case, I was like, if we can't live together for a year, I'm not marrying you. And that year tested us, friends. It truly did, and it was the test of for worse. So I think that actually, in my opinion, because I'm a person, not as a minister who can tell you what to do, that having a little trial run before marriage is kind of a good idea. But you have to be smart about it. You can't just say, well, we're still going to do it in a year because I bought a dress, right? Or I already have the ring or the tux. My uncle has a thing that he does before every wedding, and he takes a $50 bill out of his wallet, and he offers it to the bride so that she can run for her life. It is part of our tradition. And he says something very wise, and I think it's important that it's never too late to go. I don't take marriage casually, but what I do think about it is it's between the two people that are married. And if one of the people needs help, they need help, right? If there is violence or coercion or incompatibility sexually even can be a big deal breaker with marriages. It can be a last straw. If there is a certain spouse who is following a more radical, fundamental religious tenet of being subservient to the mate, I think that's when you know you have a problem. What's interesting, though, is we grow up in a culture where we don't understand what our options are, especially as young women and men and people, anybody who gets married. Marriage has changed a lot, and divorce has changed a lot. One of the things that's a really big deal right now is people who are in either same-sex or gender-fluid marriage situations who need divorces. It is a very complex process. It's worse for people in that situation than it is for the hetero couple who goes to the cheap divorce lawyer and can do it in a very subtle way. We don't make it easy for people. But as I've said over and over again, our value doesn't have anything to do with who we're with. Our value is a personal expression of who we are and the good in our heart. And the other thing I want to talk about for just a minute is kids. Remember, I was that kid. And I think, although I wish my parents hadn't gotten divorced, by the time I was 15, I was like, why were they ever married? Like, It doesn't make sense. It was a childhood sweetheart situation, high school sweethearts going to college, getting married. It was a situation of people with two different religions, which can have a huge impact too, right? When you have two different belief systems. My dad was an avowed atheist and my mom was a devoted Catholic. There were differences in educational levels. My dad was an amazing person who was a construction worker. He was a foreman, an electrical foreman. He had a great profession. He supported his family. And my mom wound up getting her master's degree in education. And as things happen, sometimes we grow in different directions. And we can't stay anchored to a marriage that hurts us or keeps us in a state of angst or unrest. But divorce is not the first step, too. I want to talk about that for a minute. I love the idea. When I marry people, I tell them I give people 3 wishes during a wedding. My first wish is that they love the worst parts of their marriage, probably later. The second wish is that you never go to bed separately. And the third one is that you talk to each other about the scariest things. Because so many times we don't talk to each other about what we need and want, our relationships really suffer. We start having those fights in our head that don't include other people. We build resentment and angst. Or we don't think about how we frame our needs in a way that doesn't hurt the other person. But I want to go back to the napping or going to bed in the same bed. You know, sleep can really heal the heart, I think. I think there's something really special about sleeping. I oftentimes will not answer a question that is particularly difficult for me until I've slept it off, right? I'll wait a day or two and see if I still feel the same, and oftentimes I don't. Oftentimes the thing I was upset about or seemed like the last straw isn't as big of a deal after I've had a good night's sleep. We also talked about hunger a while ago. We talked about the hungry judge syndrome, that judges deny parole for people who, closer to lunchtime. They're more strict closer to lunchtime, and more people are denied parole like in the hour before the judges go to lunch. So remember, eat, drink water, take naps, sleep on it. It is not a fast process to separate. It's a slow process, and it involves the same kind of grief that a death involves. The other advice is don't go on a rebound relationship. I was talking to my 16-year-old daughter who is a professional on these kind of things and was advising me about how relationships work nowadays. And she said, yeah, you got to be careful that you don't bomb. And I was like, okay, so tell me what bomb means. Because I'm always saying, like, tell me what talking to someone means, because that means more. Tell me what. And she said, a lot of people bomb when they break up by getting in a new relationship or dyeing their hair or getting a tattoo. And I was like, good point, 16-year-old. That is a good point. It takes a long time to make a decision to separate. So when that comes, make sure you take the time to really hold that in a special place and talk it through and communicate. And there are resources for people who want to have marriage counseling in the middle and beginning. I think that understanding that you will be thinking that you'll be shamed in this space if you separate from a problematic relationship is incorrect. I think that understanding that this is a place of love, and my love is centered on both parties. In fact, I get in trouble sometimes for loving both sides of an argument. I went with my husband to play pool on Thursday. I didn't play. I'm really terrible at it. I just watched people and drew pictures and thought funny things. And I was watching Simone Biles during the Olympics. Has anybody been watching the Olympics? And she was cheering for her opponent, right? And I don't know why it happened, but then I cheered for Andre's opponent. Oh, I got in a lot of trouble. I got in a lot of trouble for that. Be careful who you cheer for. But the importance is if you're supporting somebody who's going through a hard time, cheer for them, be with them, but also stay out of it. Don't try to fix things the way I did that caused more problems. I don't also want you to think that go home and say, well, the minister said that we should separate because I'm not saying that. I just want to be clear. I just want to say that everyone's sacred and your needs are sacred and people grow out of a lot of things. In fact, some of you in this room might have grown out of your childhood religion. Anybody have that happen? Although I still resent it because I talk about it all the time, apparently. Catholicism comes out. Be centered in your speech to each other, regardless of whether Rumi or the Buddha said it. Is it truthful? Is it your truth? Also reminding yourself that everybody has their own individual truths. Is it helpful? Is it kind? And the helpful part I want to take a minute with. Sometimes we hurt people with the truth. We tell them things that we know, and it hurts them. Be very thoughtful about spreading rumors or going to somebody and spreading gossip specifically about somebody's relationship. Being honest with yourself is most important. I think applying these 3 rules to your own heart and brain is very helpful too. Breaking up is hard. I don't recommend it, but some people do it. Some people are very jealous and mean, and when a guy leaves you for a girl named this is all rhyming. When a guy leaves you for a woman named Jolene, I do advise that you do not throw his guitar off of your balcony at your apartment, no matter how much it tempts you. Not to get in trouble, to be thoughtful, and to sleep on it. The reason I'm talking about this is I just want to make sure that we in this space are pushing back on the rhetoric in the world right now about people should stay in relationships that aren't good for you, regardless of violence or being coerced to have children, for example, has been coming up. In a speech, I don't often mention politicians. And I do have a politician that I don't like. I guess I can mention that. I don't know. I'm not particularly, I like the Democrats' stance on marriage a little better, would be the easiest way for me to say that. I don't think people are obligated. Steve's looking things up and laughing over here because he knows who I'm talking about. And I also want to say that the J.D. Vance, and I'm just going to say the name, and I have not been ever friends. I've never, ever been a fan. And what really scares me is the rhetoric around the oppression of women that's happening right now, and that I am finally feeling some hope about the world, but it is not a quick fix. Just like divorce is not a quick fix. It is not going to fix things. It's going to change things, maybe for the better in the long run. But just be really thoughtful about the opinions of people in power right now about women and trans folks and queer folks, because all that trickles down to really hurt children in the long run. And always remember that somebody is watching our example of relationships. I don't think anybody's marriage is superior to somebody else's. I don't think anybody's breakup is superior. But I do want you to know that kids are watching what's going on, and we are modeling truth-telling and loving ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's really all we can do. I wish I had clear, good answers about this. I don't. I just want you to know it's important and to ponder it and to watch out for women named Jolene. Thank you. It's a social justice moment. I get to be Vanna White, I hear. Oh, this is important. The social justice moment marks a transition from me talking inadequately about relationships into me talking about education. So the coming weeks, next week I'm going to talk about the trial of the century that happened in Dayton, Tennessee, the Scopes Monkey trial. So we are going to be talking a lot about freedom of education. I do follow directions. It's important. Yeah, I do. Okay, but this is how we're getting started. And thank you, Jan, for starting us out.
I feel like we should be doing this next week.
But I know, but you're going to be gone. And
This begins a series of social justice moments that will focus on different election issues. Today, we're talking about vouchers. Vouchers are cash grants to parents or guardians to pay for their child to attend a private school. If you look at vouchers by the numbers, the red line represents the Tennessee voucher at $7,200. The second line represents the Tennessee per capita education expenditure. It's roughly $10,500. Just to put that in perspective, Tennessee is fifth from the bottom in per capita expenditures. The state that is fifth from the top is Connecticut. Connecticut spends a little bit more than $21,000.
I'm changing sides.
About twice what Tennessee spends. Now, what can this $7,200 buy in the Chattanooga area? There are 50 private schools in Chattanooga. I have only focused on 2. Grace Christian Academy will give you an education that will also educate according to Southern Baptist values. So you will hear that marriage is sacred and we can't leave. And you will also hear that being gay is a choice and not a very good one. It will cost you between $8,000 for kindergarten to $12,000 for a junior in high school, roughly equivalent in price to Tennessee's per capita expenditure, but below $800. The parents are going to have to ante up with roughly $800 to $5,000 a year per child. Arguably, the Cadillac, the gold standard of education in Chattanooga is Macaulay School. Tuition for day students at Macaulay School is $33,360.
I was doing faces behind your sign. I'll quit.
Oh, nobody was laughing.
I know it wasn't a very good face.
So there are 3 problems with the voucher program in Tennessee at the state level. The first problem is that parents are going to have to come up with additional money. And some parents are just not going to be able to do that. The second problem is that the money follows the child. And that means that public schools will have less than this $10,500. The third thing is accountability. All children are going to be tested according to with the Tennessee assessment test, but the test will not be attached to the private school. In other words, we won't know if that voucher is creating a better education for children. Okay, that's a Tennessee voucher program. At the federal level, you have all heard about You've heard Project 2025, a blueprint for a Trump presidency. Some of that blueprint deals with education. Project 2025, if Trump is elected, the Department of Education will be abolished. Federal education money will be given to the states with the understanding that the states are going to prioritize payments to families to educate their children in private or for-profit charter schools. If you accept a federal voucher, you will have to give up the right to special ed services for your child. The third thing that Project 2025 is going to do is in the words of the document, end the political indoctrination of our children. And they are going to do that by ending all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In addition, many terms are going to be stricken from federal regulations and laws. Terms like sexual orientation, gender equality, reproductive rights. So I've spoken too long, but I've scratched the surface. Please do your own research.
Thank you. Here, you want your sign? I think that's an excellent segue into talking about the history of education in Tennessee, which is essentially what I'll be doing next week. And also the connection, just to add on to that, between the opening of private schools and schools desegregating in the South. So that's what we'll talk about next week. Look at this icon. Isn't that cute? So this is something new, and if you wanted to give today and you didn't bring any money, you can take your cell phone out and open your camera and hold it up, and it'll take you straight to PayPal. Isn't that amazing? And I didn't mess this up. I did this. I even remembered to ask for it. Giving here is fun. We have many exciting things going on in the horizon. The choir is revving back up. Next week, you'll really get to see the work of the church because we're going to have a committee fair so we can see and enjoy everybody's work. And just the amazing music, and especially the fellowship, and especially just having some place to talk about stuff, even if we're not right all the time, but just like talk about how we feel and stimulate our minds about what the world is like. What a special place to have a church like that. And with that, the offering will be gratefully received. I honestly think she's trying to find out how silly she can make me dance in front of you all during the offertory, and I love it. So please join me in the offertory response. We give these gifts freely, committed to our mission to care, create beloved community, awaken hearts and minds, resist injustice, and act with compassion, embrace life and care for the earth. To this work, we dedicate our offerings. So, remember that love in the jar. Please rise. It is everywhere. It is all around us, and we are the vessels that hold it. So join me in our closing song, Love Will Guide Us. Please be seated. So what? Listen, I know that I rambled a lot today because it's an uncomfortable subject, and I don't want to speak with certainty and tell people what they should or should not do. But I do know one thing, that everyone in this room is a mandatory reporter. And women's safety and people who are vulnerable, their safety, queer people, trans people, all those people who are oppressed because of race, creed, whatever, it is our jobs as mandatory reporters to report that and keep them safe. So as much as I want you to mind your own business sometimes, when it comes to relationships, I want us to take seriously that violence is never okay in a relationship. And nobody is ever obliged to be treated in a violent, coercive way, no matter who says what, even the Pope. So, and this is a place that is never going to tell you to stay in a space that could hurt you. So, I know that's kind of serious, but that's my whole heart. That's what I want people to know today. And never trust women named Jolene. I'm kidding. There's some very nice people named Jolene out there, I'm sure. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We'll wait for Monique. Oh, I didn't light our candle today. I'm sorry, I forgot. I was going to light it for peace and the end of war and the end of violence and marriage. We extinguish this flame, but keep the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. And it's announcement time. Do I have somebody who wants to lead announcements? Judy, yeah. Oh. Thank you all. I'll see you at the door and say goodbye and have a great week, and may your service begin.
Good morning. I'm Judy Gallagher, she, her, and I'm your board president for the year. So I'm just going to facilitate announcements. So who has one? Looks like Christian does.
Morning, y'all. This coming Sunday, ice cream social and committee fair. What is this about? So right after the church service, we want to invite all of the committees and groups to present themselves. We're going to set up some tables. We're going to provide some ice cream flavors. And if you want to get more than one ice cream flavor, you as the member and interested or friend, you just go from table to table and you got to talk to the people what they're doing. So therefore, what I want to welcome anybody. I reached out last night by email to a good number of groups and committees, but I might not have caught everybody. So please see me after the service. The way that we're going to work it by 10 a.m. next Sunday, we're going to have the tables ready. Between 10 and 11, committees and groups can decorate their table. And then right after the service, we're going to do the committee fair. On top of that, different topic, because hey, if you're already here next Sunday for the ice cream or the committee fair, before the service, you can either join the choir or you can go to forum when we're gonna talk about why are you a UU or why you're not a UU.
Thank you, Christian. Is there any other announcements that need to be made? And also, just so you know, if you are on a time schedule for on Sundays when we get to announcements, do feel free to quietly walk out. So anyhow, Jen.
It's me. Hi. We can share. Hi, everybody. All right, this Wednesday, 6:30, we're going to open the doors. 7 o'clock, we're playing bingo. How fun. I mean, we're like a real church now because we now provide bingo, right? So this is a fundraiser for the church, so please come join us. The cost is, $5? And you're going to get 2 bingo cards and a ticket for a single concession, a snack. It's not dinner. And then you can buy additional bingo cards. And then we're going to have official daubers. You can actually have fun and stamp your cards and whatnot, so woohoo. And then you can buy additional snacks for $1. We'll imagine this will be done by 9 p.m. We're going to play all the classic games and whatnot, and we're going to have little silly fun prizes for everybody. So we hope you'll join us. Yes.
There will not be childcare. Kids are absolutely welcome to play. This is an all ages thing. We have the library. I live in Ringgold, and we have bingo at our local library, and there are a ton of kids that come. And we do have prizes for every win, and we have prizes for some kids prizes too. So, any other questions?
And if you buy a dollar, your kids can, we'll provide free paper.
Mm-hmm. All right, so anyway, please come out and have a good time. You do not have to stay for the whole time. If you want to come and play for a little bit and then go home, that's also fine. This Wednesday is the night before school starts. We have great timing on that, so you don't have to stay the whole time. We will also have a grand finale prize. The last game of the night will be a grand finale prize. And we're going to do this 2 times, so if you can't come this Wednesday, please come on the 21st, but we hope to see you here. These are on the opposite Wednesdays from the potlucks. So these are not competing with the potlucks. These are non-potluck Wednesdays.
You're just coming every Wednesday from now on.
Every single Wednesday night plan to be here.
Like a real Southern church.
We don't have a service, but we've got stuff. So, okay. Yay, thank you.
Any other announcements? Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming. There's coffee and some more stuff. I think there's a book club meeting afterwards if you're part of that. So thank you, and may your service continue to the greater community. Thank you.